The night was pitch black, illuminated only by a thin sliver of moonlight reflecting off the damp ground. The rain had just stopped, leaving the sharp scent of wet soil lingering in the air. At the edge of a remote village lay an ancient graveyard, nestled among dead trees, where moss-covered tombstones leaned precariously, and fallen leaves carpeted the ground. Arya walked cautiously, each step careful. He carried a small wooden box containing a sacred relic said to ward off evil spirits. Villagers had always warned him, "Do not go near that graveyard at night, or the dead will not rest." But curiosity had driven him here, and curiosity can be deadly. When he reached the oldest grave, the earth in front of him seemed a lump of soil moved slowly, as if something was trying to break through the surface. Arya swallowed hard, heart pounding. He leaned closer, and his blood ran cold pale. Slimy hands broke through the soil, blackened nails stretching outward, dirt clinging to every crease of their decayed skin. Suddenly, a hoarse voice rose from the earth. "Set me free?" Arya stumbled backward, but his feet felt rooted, as if the ground itself were holding him. One by one, corpses rose from the graves, their eyes hollow, mouths emitting a guttural, ear-piercing rasp, their bodies scarred and rotting. The stench of death filled the air, choking Arya. He tried to run, but the earth around the graves became sticky, binding his legs. The undead drew closer, slow but relentless. Each step produced a sickening crack of broken bones. Arya screamed, calling out to God, but his voice was swallowed by the whispers of the graves. "You should not have come." As one of the corpses reached for him, Arya remembered the relic in his hand. He tore open the cloth covering the wooden box and recited the incantation taught to him by the village elder. White light erupted from the relic, shining upon the corpses, causing them to tremble. But not all fled. One remained, advancing with eyes full of unrelenting rage. Arya kicked the corpse and ran as fast as he could through the dark forest, but behind him came the sound of unearthly footsteps. When he looked back, the grave yawned open wider, and from it, the dead kept emerging endlessly. That night, Arya realized a terrifying truth. The dead are never truly at rest, and they are always waiting for anyone who dares disturb their graves. Arya stumbled through the dark forest, gasping for breath. The relic's light had driven the nearest corpse back into the earth, but the whispers from the graveyard did not stop. They followed him, echoing in the trees, growing louder with every step. "You cannot escape. You cannot hide." Suddenly, the forest floor trembled beneath him. Roots twisted like serpents, reaching for his ankles. Arya tripped and fell hard onto the wet soil, dropping the relic. Panic surged through him as he saw dozens of hands, breaking through the ground all around him. One corpse, different from the others, crawled toward him. Its eyes glowed faintly in the moonlight, and its mouth moved as if whispering secrets from the grave. Arya tried to back away, but the ground was alive, sucking him deeper into the forest floor. Desperate, he grabbed the relic, holding it high. A blinding light erupted, forcing the crawling corpse to pause. In that moment, Arya glimpsed something horrifying, a shadow moving beneath the roots, far bigger than any human. It was as if the earth itself had awakened and the dead were just its servants. Arya realized he couldn't outrun them. He had to confront whatever had risen beneath the graves. With trembling hands, he whispered the ancient incantation again. The relic pulsed, sending waves of light through the forest, but the shadows of the dead began to twist and merge, forming a massive, writhing figure. The voice of the first corpse he saw, hoarse and haunting, rang in his ears. "This is only the beginning." Arya knew then that escaping the graveyard was impossible. Something far older and far darker than he could imagine had been awakened, and it would not rest until it consumed everything in its path. Arya's lungs burned as he pressed forward through the twisted forest. The relic's light cut through the darkness, but the shadows beneath the roots writhed like living nightmares. Every step felt heavier, as if the earth itself resisted his escape. Ahead, he saw a clearing where the oldest graves lay, cracked and broken. From the largest tomb, a dark mist rose, coiling into shapes that whispered in ancient tongues. Arya's heart sank. This was the source, the heart of the graveyard's power. Suddenly, the ground exploded. From the soil erupted hundreds of corpses, more grotesque and decayed than ever. Their eyes glowed faintly with unholy light, mouths moving in silent chants. The largest shadow emerged, towering over Arya, composed of roots, soil, and the fused bodies of the dead. Its voice rumbled like an earthquake. "You dare disturb us, and now you will join us." Arya raised the relic. The white light burst forth, illuminating the clearing. The massive shadow recoiled, but it did not fall. Instead, it split, revealing the skeletal figure of a long-dead priest, its robes tattered, eyes burning with hatred. Arya realized the truth. The priest had performed dark rituals centuries ago, binding the dead to the earth itself. Fear gripped him, but Arya remembered the final verse of the incantation, the one no villager had dared recite. He shouted it with all his strength. The relic's light turned blinding, cutting through the mist and shadows. The corpses screamed as the priest's figure writhed, trying to resist the power. Roots tore apart, bones shattered, and the earth trembled violently. Arya fell to his knees, exhausted, watching as the undead were dragged back into the soil, disappearing into the darkness. But just as he thought it was over, a single hand shot up from the ground behind him. Slowly, deliberately, it reached toward him, pale and decomposed. The priest's voice echoed, faint but chilling. "This is not the end. I will return." Arya fled into the forest, realizing that the graveyard's curse had only begun. Somewhere beneath the earth, the dead still whispered, waiting for the next soul foolish enough to awaken them. 3 days had passed since Arya fled the graveyard. The villagers found him wandering near the riverbank, mud all over his body, eyes empty and his voice trembling. He kept muttering the same words again and again. "They're still moving under the ground?" They took him to the old healer's hut, where candles flickered and the air smelled of herbs and decay. Arya tried to explain, but no one believed him. The relic, once glowing with divine light, now looked blackened and cracked, like something had drained its power. That night, as he lay awake, Arya heard it again. The whisper, soft at first, then clearer. "You didn't finish it, Arya." His eyes snapped open. The floor beneath his bed pulsed slowly, rhythmically, like it was breathing. A foul stench filled the air. He jumped out of bed, clutching the relic, but it was dead, lifeless. From the cracks in the wooden floor, black soil began to rise. And then fingers. Pale, rotten fingers clawing their way through the boards. Arya screamed and ran outside, but the entire village had changed. The ground moved like waves beneath the houses. In the moonlight, he saw them villagers standing still, their heads tilted, eyes lifeless. Then, one by one, they began to smile. "Welcome back, Arya." It wasn't the villagers anymore. The dead had found their way out. Arya ran toward the forest, heart pounding, but every tree, every shadow, whispered his name. He realized the truth in horror. The curse wasn't bound to the graveyard. It was inside him. When he had used the relic's power, a piece of that ancient evil had attached itself to his soul. The dead no longer needed the soil. They had him as their vessel. As the whispers grew louder, Arya looked down at his trembling hands. His skin was turning pale, veins black like roots creeping beneath the flesh. And then, from somewhere deep within, a voice his own but twisted spoke. "You freed us, Arya. Now let us live again." His scream echoed through the forest. And when dawn came, no one found him, only a trail of dark soil leading back toward the graveyard. The forest was silent. No birds. No wind. Only the faint sound of something moving beneath the soil. Weeks had passed since Arya vanished. The villagers avoided the graveyard now, whispering stories of shadows wandering at night and strange voices calling from the woods. But one night, a young priest named Elias came to the village sent by the church to cleanse whatever evil still lingered. Armed with holy seals and a lantern, Elias stepped into the forest. The deeper he went, the thicker the air became, heavy with rot and whispers. He followed the trail of dark soil until he reached it, the ancient graveyard. The earth was no longer still. It pulsed slowly, like a massive heart buried beneath the ground. Elias lifted his lantern and his eyes widened. In the center of the graves stood Arya, but he wasn't human anymore. His skin was gray, veins like black roots crawling up his neck. His eyes glowed faintly in the dark, and from his mouth came a low, distorted voice. "You came to finish what I began." Elias tried to pray, but his words faltered. The relic in his hand vibrated violently, reacting to Arya's presence. The ground split open, revealing skeletal hands, crawling bodies, and faces screaming in silence. Arya raised his hand, and the dead obeyed. They rose like waves surrounding Elias, but the priest didn't back down. He pressed the relic to his chest, whispering a forbidden rite meant to purify both the living and the damned. A blinding light erupted, tearing through the darkness. Arya screamed not in pain, but in fury. His body began to disintegrate into ash, but as he faded, his voice echoed through the air. "You cannot kill what death has claimed." The light consumed the graveyard. When dawn came, there was nothing left, no bodies. No graves, only scorched earth and silence. But that night in the village, someone found Elias's lantern lying near the riverbank, still burning. And when they picked it up, the flame flickered, then whispered in Arya's voice, "It's not over. The end. Or perhaps the beginning."